Hey, what's going on, everybody? Not your average Josh, back here again for another video, and this time it is to review the new release Sonic the Hedgehog 3. I just reviewed Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2. You can see it should be down in the description below, the link for that video if you want to check that out. But I was able to check this out as I'm recording this yesterday at a little fan early screening event that they had really just a couple hours before they started showing it to everyone else. But it was a really fun experience. I got this nice cool poster as well, this little smaller one that I really do enjoy, a nice little character design of Shadow. But before I get into the bulk of this, I do want to say if you're watching this, go ahead and hit that like button, leave a comment, and hit the subscribe button as well. Any support for this channel is very much appreciated. Still a smaller channel here, just doing this because I love talking about movies and television shows and all kinds of stuff like that. And you can also follow me on any of my social medias that should be somewhere on this screen as well. But let's go ahead and get into this review of Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Now for me, as I said, I already did a review of the first two movies about a week ago. It's the first time I actually watched those movies, never saw them in the theater or anything like that, and I really enjoyed the first one. The second one was a good sequel for me, but I thought it was definitely a step down from what the first one was personally. And I had already been seeing the trailer for this third movie, and it looked really cool, really nice, but now having seen the other movies, I definitely was pretty excited for this movie. I was going into it, Keanu Reeves playing this Shadow character. I thought there was a lot of potential there, and I thought there was definitely some potential as well in just possibly stepping up from what I thought the last movie was, the second one, which I thought was still good, but just not quite as great as the first one was for me. And if you don't know, this movie is about Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails teaming up this time, and they're fighting against a powerful new adversary called, of course, the aforementioned Shadow, played by Keanu Reeves, who is a mysterious villain with powers unlike anything they have faced before, and now it all culminates in this third movie. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say right off the bat, I really enjoyed this movie. This movie, to me, was everything that I was hoping the second one was going to be. I thought they leveled up in certain areas where, again, I was really hoping they would, and some of the other stuff that was already well done in the first movie and in the second one as well, they brought over into this. And I think it really helps because you have the same director who has directed the last two movies coming back for this one, Jeff Fowler. I think he just really has a nice pulse on this world, on the story that he wants to tell. All three of the movies have the same similar vibe, the same type of humor, never really diverts from what the formula that makes these movies great. And also bringing back pretty much the same writers for every movie. In the first movie, you had Pat Casey and Josh Miller, but they also brought in John Whittington in the second movie, and they all three are back for this as well. And you can really see that continuity carrying over, not just with the story itself, but in the way these movies are crafted, the writing and the directing. It all just feels like in the same world that we're just continuing the story just now in a different movie. And I really appreciate that about this world that is now being built with this franchise and this cinematic SEGA universe, I guess, that is potentially happening here. A couple of things right off the bat that I think this movie did improve on from the second one is, I think, the villain here with Shadow. I did like Knuckles in the second movie. I was honestly hoping to love Knuckles, and I didn't quite get there with that in the second movie. I thought they really did a good job of setting him up in this potential rivalry with Sonic, but I didn't think they spent enough time on the relationship he had with Sonic in the movie. And so for me, it kind of faltered a little bit with that. I still really enjoyed the character, and I also really love the team now we have with Tails, Sonic, and Knuckles. You really get that true family vibe, and I also love at the beginning of this movie, you get a couple of family moments here with Tom and Maddie now basically having these alien children, really honestly, with Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. And just the way they set that up is all good, but really Shadow here, I think he's a much more compelling villain, adversary more than anything, and they spend more time on the actual rivalry with Sonic and Shadow in this, particularly their fighting. Like, there's a moment at the beginning of the movie where you have a lot of fighting going on, but then they also go back to it. Whereas I thought in the second movie, it still kind of diverted back to just focusing on Dr. Robotnik, which is never, I don't mind that because Jim Carrey is really good in all three of these movies. Even the jokes that don't land, he's just constantly coming with the same energy that just feels like he's having fun and just going for it. And for me as a Jim Carrey fan, I just really enjoy it. I can see how it might be a little off-putting consistently in these movies if you just didn't like it from the beginning, if you really are into the games. I'm one person, didn't mention at the top, I mentioned in my other review of the first two movies, not really that steeped in the lore of Sonic. I'm pretty much just very general knowledge. I do know a little bit about Knuckles, Sonic, Shadow, just a very little bit. I don't really know much about this world, don't know how Dr. Robotnik really usually even is seen as in the game. So I just really enjoyed Jim Carrey's performance here, and I'm really taking these movies on just the cinematic experience that they are. But that's kind of my background with that. So that is going to differ from some people. I know there are some where don't necessarily like Jim Carrey's portrayal of Dr. Robotnik and some other aspects to these movies. But for me, I really enjoyed every time. I also really enjoyed this movie, just got right to it. It's about an hour and 49-minute long runtime. I think that's with credits. The movie goes by at a really nice pace. I think the pacing is really great in this. And just from the very beginning, you're immediately introduced to Shadow before you even see Sonic at all in this. I thought that was really well done because we've already had 2 movies with Sonic, and now we know he has his family. We don't necessarily need to start out with him right away. You start out with Shadow. They built his presence like immediately. You feel the danger. They show off his powers in such a cool way. And in this opening scene, this isn't really spoiling anything. It happens in the first like couple minutes, but Shadow breaks out of this prison location that he's in, and it's such a cool scene. They really showcase his powers so well. This teleportation powers he has, and the effects in this movie also are, I think, the best of the 3 movies. Now, I will say for me, as I was saying earlier, I didn't see the first 2 in the theaters, so maybe that might affect my experience seeing this on the big screen. I thought the colors just popped even more. The effects with Shadow, like as soon as he was on the screen, it's raining at the beginning of this movie, and like the texture of his like fur just feels so tangible and just looks so fucking good. And that, along with Keanu Reeves' voice, I just thought was a really compelling and cool character to follow. Like I said, they just get right into it in this movie. You go right into Sonic after showing Shadow, and you immediately get the family vibe. They have a nice couple of heartwarming moments to really set up this family that is now in place here, and then it gets right into the plot of this movie and everything involving Shadow and all the stuff that is going on with him. And I thought they also did a better job in the writing with this movie in terms of, as I was saying, with the villain Shadow and his background, his story. You felt more of a connection as to why he's doing this. Like, you felt that in the second movie with Knuckles, but I thought they just kind of touched on it more than anything. Whereas this, they really go deeper into the background of Shadow, why he's doing what he's doing, why he has this hurt inside of him. And they do a nice compare and contrast with Sonic. They both, as they were trying to do again in the last movie, I thought they did a better job in this, where they both have hurt in their lives. And you get to see it affect Sonic more in this, where he kind of lets his anger take a hold of him in parts of this movie. And I like that as well, seeing the more darker side of Sonic a couple times in this. But with Shadow, you just get these more deeper elements, and you really understand why he has this hurt. And you're like, yeah, if I was that character too, I understand. I might probably be doing the same stuff he's doing and fighting back and with my anger. And it's really well done in that, and just a little compare and contrast there. And as I said, the effects throughout this whole movie are just so amazing to watch. The action is just entertaining as fuck throughout the whole thing. Just so many really cool shots. A couple of the negatives for me with this movie: in the first couple acts, I feel like they try to go for the humor a little too much at times. Like, they're really trying to force in these jokes that didn't feel as natural as it did throughout the first 2 movies. Like, as a whole, the humor for the most part still works in this movie. It wasn't like it didn't work at all, but especially when you get to the second and third act of the movie, there's a lot more action and more stakes going on, so there's less of the humor, so it's not as inconsistent with how much of the humor does hit. But I just thought there was times, again, the first couple acts, where I was just a little like, okay, they're forcing it a little much here. And so it did take me a while to warm up to this movie in general. And at first I was like, oh man, this is probably close to the second movie. But as I got to the end of this, into the third act, I thought this was the best third act for me of the movie so far. I really still enjoy the first one a lot, and so this one is more on par with that first one at the end of it. I think what they do here, if you've seen the trailer, this isn't really much of a spoiler. You get Dr. Robotnik's granddad in this movie, and Jim Carrey playing both characters. I thought it's just so really well done. Like, I thought it was just going to be a little smaller moment in the movie, but it actually carries on further with this granddad and his involvement in the plot. And I thought it was actually really interesting what that brings with Dr. Robotnik in this movie, because you were starting to maybe could feel a little repetitive after a while with just, okay, Dr. Robotnik's back again. He's going to potentially team up with Shadow, which they try and do a little bit of that near the beginning of this movie, and I was a little bit mixed on that at first, but the direction they ended up going, I actually really enjoyed what they did with the writing here. And there were some real emotional moments in this movie. Like, truly, I got chills several times throughout, especially when you get to the second and third act of this. And they don't do the exact predictable thing I thought they might do. I think they might still end up getting there eventually down the road, but I liked how they did a little bit of subversion of expectations as to what exactly was going to happen. And there's certain characters where you don't know quite if they will return or be back in any capacity. There's a couple post-credit scenes. They both are pretty important for the future of the Sonic franchise, and they're obviously setting up things here down the road. But I thought, just as a trilogy, with the second one being the weakest for me of these movies, this is still a damn good trilogy and a really good video game adaptation. Just as a whole, all three of these movies. Everything's just real great with the voice cast. Ben Schwartz, still really good as Sonic. Sonic looks about just as good as he did in the second one. I thought they did almost as much as you can to improve the character in the second movie, so there's not as much of a difference in this. I think it was really just Shadow was so impressive because the first time you're seeing him on the screen, and his, man, just the colors and the look of the character, they just really got down so well, and it was so badass to see him again with his teleportation powers and how he was using that in the battles was really cool to see. And you even get some definitely even more anime inspired stuff in this movie, some Super Saiyan action at different times that I really enjoyed, and I just thought it really was a nice culmination of these movies as a whole. You bring back some elements from the last movie that are brought into the plot of this one as well, and it really just does a good job of raising the stakes, making the movie feel more epic, but also doing it a little bit better than I thought in the last movie. And I thought one of the reasons why for that as well was you didn't spend like parts of the movie at this wedding like you did in the second movie. I didn't really care as much for the whole wedding aspect of it. I thought they were just trying to keep Tom and Maddie involved in the plot, and I was like, okay, this is fine enough because I like the connection that Tom has with Sonic, Tom and Maddie have with Sonic, but I was way more interested in just everything going on with Sonic. So I loved how in this movie, anything Tom and Maddie were doing related to what was going on in the main plot of this. Like, it pretty much stayed focused throughout this whole movie, and I really enjoyed that as well. Just not diverting off into different directions as we were in the last movie at certain times, and I really enjoyed that. You even get Rachel and Randall back here. Even though I didn't enjoy that part of the movie as much in the last one, it was still cool. They found a way to bring them in here just for a little moment. It was still pretty nice because I thought Rachel definitely was more of a funny character in the last movie for me. It was a little improvement on the first one. So you even get a couple other additions to this movie. Kristen Ritter as Director Rockwell. It was pretty nice seeing her in this. I recognized her. I couldn't remember her name until after I looked up on IMDb. I've seen her in a few different things throughout the years, so it was kind of cool to see her in this. She's just really a basic character overall, so it's not like it's really that much of a thing. But you also even get in here Cristo Fernandez, who is in Ted Lasso, and I really enjoy him in that show. And he makes just a little funny cameo appearance in this that I really also enjoy. So there's a couple little things there. But
it's like back in Guadalajara. You say it, I do it, coach. Football is life!
Overall, this was the sequel that I was hoping was going to be. Definitely an improvement for me personally on the last movie. I know that I'm probably in the minority on that. I think most people would think the second one was just as good as the first one, if not better. I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy seeing Tails, Sonic, and Knuckles together as a team working, but at the beginning of this movie, when you get that, it was really satisfying because they set it up in the last movie, and they really do work together really well, with Tails being the brains, doing a lot of the technology stuff, Sonic the leader, and then Knuckles having more of the brawn, that muscle you can really bring, that extra little hit you can bring to the fight. And I really enjoyed all the personalities as well with the group. They're also able to, again, bring in Tom and Maddie in here in a way that felt kind of natural. Like, they're just involved in everything going on here. I never once thought, oh man, the humans are here again. They don't really need to be here. I was really just connected with the whole story and everything going on, and the action is really cool. Really well done. The effects are just peaking at this point with this franchise. They're doing it so well. There was not a moment in this movie where I was like, oh man, those effects look a little bit off. There was times in the last movie where I did think that, where I was just so maybe interlocked with the story more, so maybe there might be moments where I just didn't notice. My main mixed/negative aspects with this movie was the humor in the first two acts, as I said, just not being as consistent. And then the one other thing that is, I guess, really kind of a negative with this movie is the soundtrack. Like, there's one song by Jelly Roll that I really enjoy that is played at the in credits, I believe, and I don't think it's played throughout the rest of the movie, but that was more just an original song created for this movie. But the actual soundtrack, using songs from different artists and everything, I just thought it was the weakest of the three movies so far. There was a couple times even where it was like, okay, I don't know if this song quite works actually for this moment, and I wasn't really used to that for these movies, so that's kind of more of a smaller negative. Nothing too big there. The humor being a little bit more of a bigger negative/mixed aspect. But those are really the two main things that sticks out after watching this movie that was more on the downside. Other than that, really enjoyed the effects, as I said, the voice casting, the action. It's a really satisfying trilogy. You get even more to do with Dr. Robotnik with some of the story elements they bring here. Adding a couple more characters here, it fleshes out the world even more, and I just thought This was a even more focused sequel, and for that, it just improved upon the last one. And yeah, just really enjoyed this movie a lot. If you really love the first two, I would go check this out as soon as possible because this is a fun one, and especially compared to another movie I'm about to review, Mufasa, The Lion King. The movie's not bad or anything, but this is definitely the one I would probably choose to go see, especially when you've got kids. This is a fun time at the movies, and it's really cool to see on the big screen, and I might even go check it out a couple more times before it ends up leaving. Especially with the holidays around, I think this is going to be a pretty nice sized hit. That is my main thoughts. I'm going to give Sonic the Hedgehog 3 a 9 out of 10. To me, it is right there with that first one. I still have it's still pretty recent for me, but a real love for that first movie that I couldn't really put this over that. But I think those two are the best, with the second one just coming a little behind both of the first and the third movie. But what do you guys think? Have you already seen this movie? Do you plan to go see it? Are you a fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, the games, these movies? Whatever your thoughts are, leave a comment down below. I would love to hear anything like that. You can also leave a like and hit the subscribe button if you want to support this channel. Still a smaller channel here, so I appreciate any support I get, just doing this for the fun of it. I love talking movies and TV shows. I love going to see movies and seeing TV shows. It's just so fun. I've just loved it for pretty much most of my life. So you can also follow me on any of my social medias. They're somewhere on the screen, as I usually say here. I'll be looking for pretty soon my Mufasa The Lion King review that'll be coming out pretty shortly after this one, and to hear my thoughts on that. And some other new releases that are still going to come out near the end of this year. You got Nosferatu and A Complete Unknown, along with Baby Girl. I think I'm going to try and go out and see. That one looks pretty interesting. But yeah, that is it for now. I will talk to you guys later.